All right, before I start today's video, I wanted to play this video for you because it is absolutely one of the most absurd things I've ever seen.
And I have background experience, 3 solid years of experience working in mental health. So I felt like I was a very qualified candidate to come in asking for a very reasonable salary of $40,000. I shit you not, this man looks at me and he goes, yeah, so I'm gonna tell you right now, the starting salary for this position is $25,000. Uh,
I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, literally, this is the kind of crap that's out there. People are expected to work for practically nothing. The stark contrast between job requirements, especially for degrees, experience, and long interviews, and the salaries offered are absolutely ridiculous. I've been on Indeed now for 4 weeks. I'm looking at these jobs that require certifications, require years of education, require a STEM degree. In this, these people have the audacity to offer this girl $12.50 an hour. That's not even minimum wage in Arizona, where the minimum wage is $14.35, or excuse me, $14.35. I remember it went up by 50 cents from last year. And they have the audacity to offer you this less money than you would make flipping burgers at McDonald's. And they look at you like you're the one that's insane. Think about that. I made this video about 6 months ago where I told you guys that in order to be able to get by, you have to work 200 hours a week to reach a wage in which you can live off and pay your bills. And I'm not talking about luxury here. I'm talking about just paying your bills. And you have people like this whole video is full of people talking about being lowballed in the interview. And I've been there before. I've walked into a job that had multiple stages, right? You had first, they wanted you to fill out an application online. Then they watched you on a video. Then they had you come into the office. And after you did all of this elaborate jumping through these hoops, you would get to the end and then they would tell you that the job pays $16 an hour and that you're not their best candidate. And that's the icing on top. They let you know that you're not their best choice. And I've seen these jobs open and close for years. And there was one where I went to this networking place. I think they provided like tech support for some sort of VPN or something. And it was right next door to my current job. And I went into this interview and exactly what she said. They looked at you. They already made their decision that they weren't going to hire you. But here you are. And I want to remember it's like Matrix Networking or something, or oh, I think it was like Marcus Networking or something. This place is always hiring. And I wondered, when you look at these types of jobs, Insight is just like that too. It's just a large call center, and they can't hold on to anyone because these jobs are the definition of being toxic. Not toxic on the surface, but entirely toxic places where you walk around inside the building and you look in the cubicles and you see people that have given up on life. People who understand that this is a $15 an hour job, but they want you to take it seriously. Like this girl goes on to say here, she's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for $12.50. That means it's a salaried position. So not only is she going to get paid $12.50, but it's salary. So if she works 40 hours or 80 hours, imagine that her wage per hour, if she has to work that much overtime and be available 24/7, her wages could decrease to just $3 an hour. And I've met people like this. One of the other managers that I work with at my current company, he does this. We make almost entirely our salaries are pretty much equivalent to one another. But he puts in 2 to 3 times more time into this job every week than I do. And for the most part, because, and let me break this up. I meant on paper, we get paid the same, except he's salary and I'm hourly. And that means that once I reached my 40 hours, everything on top of that is being paid in overtime. He doesn't get that, but he still puts in twice, sometimes even more time than that, into the company for free. And they expect you to do that in these types of jobs where you come to work and they practically expect you to work for free. And if you're on call 24/7 and you're making $12.50 an hour, when are you supposed to get another job in order to support yourself? Because if you look in the background in this image, this lady doesn't live in a studio apartment like I do. She's living in a house. There's no way you could support a house on $12.50 an hour. The outrage that I feel when I go into these interviews, and then you get to the end and hear what they think is an acceptable rate for a person with as much education, because she has 2 master's degrees and a bachelor's degrees. I have 4 bachelor's degrees. And so when I go into a place and it's disrespectful from the get go, right? Because they don't care about your education. Remember that, educated people out there, your education in the eyes of your employer, especially if it has nothing to do with that job. And most of us after college are not going to use our bachelor's degrees for anything. I've never used a single class, a single bit of my education to land any job. The only thing that my education shows is that I'm expensive. And a lot of companies will look at your education and think, oh my God, I'm going to have to pay for that. No, they literally will lowball you anyway, wondering how desperate you are. And that's my current job. When I went to go interview for my current job, like 3 years ago, I was sitting in a meeting with a guy that was twitchy, nervous, sweaty. Like everything about him seemed like a used car salesman, right? Like he was going to push this particular job in your direction and say, "Oh my God, where this job seems like it'd be a perfect fit for your education. You seem to be a really nice guy." And all of this, like, what would I call it? Lies. That's what I would call them. But in another video that I was planning on making this afternoon, I'm going to go into that in more detail. I have an entire script set up for that. But I don't understand how you look at yourself and you think, well, they act like they're doing you a favor. That's how I felt in the interview for this job. It's like, you know what? I'm just helping you out. And I remember seeing the postings on Indeed for this job where it posted every 10 days because they couldn't get anyone to work for the minimum wage. Because that's what this job originally offered. It wasn't until I got promoted like 6 months later where I could stop walking to work. And a lot of the tasks that I currently still have are still revolve around a minimum wage job, like cleaning and I can't even tell you guys. Everything that you would do in a minimum wage job, I have to do for this job. And you kind of just like, well, why is this like this? And you start out, and remember, again, this was a minimum wage job, so we had to have that uncomfortable conversation, that talk about money. And like she says in this video, the first thing they ask you is, why do you want to work here? And you can't answer that question, especially for a minimum wage job, with, I'm trying to do something with my life. Because if you're applying to entry level jobs, you're obviously not a person that's in a good position financially, or else you wouldn't be applying to that particular job. But here you are, sitting in an interview where you're overly dressed. The person's already made a decision that they're going to try to use every dirty trick in the book to get you to take this job. And I, at the time, was extremely desperate. I mean, I think I was only a couple weeks from ending up on the street because I hadn't worked in so long. And when you show up at a job in desperate and they can smell the desperation on you, I think it makes them feel even like they have more power over you. Because I remember going to technology interviews while I was working in retail. And they would ask me, it's like, well, why are you working? Why are you stocking shelves right now? And I'm like, because I've been in job interviews for years. And they kind of just look at it and they're like, you know what? We can get you out of that retail job, but we're gonna pay you $1 more. And you kind of look at them and you're like, is this for real? That's really what it comes down to in these job interviews sometimes. Is this for real? Like, where's the prank cam? Where are they recording this in which I am going to see myself up on a TikTok where they offer me the minimum wage and I out of desperation I say yes and then they come out and they say, Sat, we pranked you. And I'm like, oh my God, that was the interview. Oh my goodness gracious, if I only could make a TikTok like this and all the interviews where I've been shocked at what they wanted and who they were waiting for. I mean, I remember being in a job interview at the university and the job paid $15 an hour for a system administrator that knew Linux and that knew Apple and Windows and I believe Chrome OS and your or Chrome Flex, whatever that operating system is. They wanted someone that knew all of that stuff. And when I asked them why the job paid $15 an hour, they came back and they said, "Well, we were looking for someone who was more desperate, that was just looking for a job so that they can go to school part time while they did this job." And that was their excuse. It's like, we're not going to offer you a whole lot, but we'll give you a partial tuition waiver. That's how I feel like they entice people to work in fast food. It's like, this is McDonald's. We know we can't pay you more than the minimum wage, but you get free fries with in every shift. So the fries offset the money that we would want to pay you, and this is what you get. So anyhow, I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you guys are enjoying your Monday, and I will come back in a couple of hours to make my long video for today.